right, my computer's acting weird. I hope this is recording normally. Anyway, spur pruning. The next slide, the length of the spur is 2 clearly defined buds. And so this photo with the thumb here on the left-hand side, you can see the buds are already fully past the bud break stage, that you've got leaf formation already. So this is in the spring. So that's not what it would look like at pruning. You don't prune when it's growing. You prune before bud break and possibly just after dormancy. It depends. You've got a wide range, very early pruning right after dormancy, or very late pruning just before bud break. And we've already talked about some of the reasons you might choose one or the other. But in general, late pruning has certain advantages to avoid any kind of additional exposure to certain diseases. Those cut surfaces on the pruning are exposed to potential winter infestation of some spores for molds or possibly bacteria. And so later pruning can reduce your risk, but at the same time, later pruning can also cause later fruiting and push your crop a little bit later. You get later bud break, later fruiting. Everything kind of gets pushed a little bit later when you do a late prune. Pros and cons. All right, so here's a nice cordon with correct spacing, well pruned 12 to 15 centimeters apart. Spacing between the spurs results in good sunlight penetration and spacing of the clusters. So this looks really nice after these, what appears to be fairly young, yeah, it must be fairly young shoots in spring. And here's just before harvest, it appears. The clusters well spaced, they're not touching each other. And that's just a beautiful picture. When you have properly pruned plants, it looks like this. So again, another well spaced. This is a much higher density. This could be a wine grape, but it's probably a table grape. Looks like quite a heavy fruit load for a wine grape, but it could be. Wrong spacing. I mean, I almost go cross-eyed when I go to that picture. I've got to stop and look and go, what the hell is going on here? So I don't know if somebody found a vineyard that was poorly managed, or somebody was just screwing with a vine on purpose to show what bad spacing looks like. But I can't even make heads or tails of that. That's so mixed up. And you'll have all kinds of problems. You get branches crossing, and when branches cross, they can rub against each other in ways that can cause problems. It helps the bad guys like mealybugs spreading when you've got wood touching wood, and when you've got clusters touching wood, that also is a bad thing. And improper spacing, you're almost always going to increase your clusters touching wood. Results of poor spacing, you end up having shoots that don't lignify properly. And so here it's kind of hard to tell in this picture, but you're not getting the turn in color from a nice green young shoot to that amber brownish color of a lignified cane. And when you've got just too dense of a canopy, not enough spacing, not enough sunlight coming in, you're not triggering the lignification, and you're shading the interior, and you're not getting the fruiting. So you get low amounts of crop, and it's just not a good situation. Both these pictures look pretty ugly. Poor spacing of spurs. Again, I don't know what the heck's going on here with all of this stuff, but here you've got a pen. Clearly this spur here to this spur here is way less than a ballpoint pen. That's too close. That's too close. But you got a bunch of other things going on here. That's just kind of ugly. You end up with no sunlight in the canopy when you have something like that. And canes that get trapped inside, the plant will just abandon them and they'll die. Dead shoots, which again leads to more disease. But wild vines growing without any human interaction, if you dig around in them, they've got all kinds of dead vine material underneath the dense canopy, and all the live stuff is on the surface. And they have plenty of fruit production for survival, for seeding the next generation. But from a production standpoint, that's awful. That's an awful way to grow. Cane pruning, the next one on the list, used for varieties with low natural fruitfulness on the basal buds. So if you don't have high fruitfulness on those first 3 buds, you need to do some sort of cane pruning. So 4, 5, 6 or more, the short canes versus the long canes. And there's no magic number. Exactly how many do you call a short cane and a long cane? But in general, you can see here that in that range, 5 to 8 range of buds that you leave, you call that a short cane. If you go 9 or more, you call that a long cane, according to this particular grower. And I don't know how consistent that is. I've seen a little bit of discrepancy in the literature on that, but that's not that important. What's really important is the number of buds, not whether you call it short or long. Vine structure consists of a permanent trunk with annual renewal canes. The shoot positioning can be vertical or horizontal. So you can still do this as a vertical shoot position type of a structure with the cane pruning, or you can do horizontal canes. For every 1 cane that is pruned, 1 2-bud spur must also be left below the cane for renewal. Very important concept. You not only need to prune canes, but you need to leave the 2-bud spurs to make canes for next time. I'll show you a picture of that, and hopefully it'll make more sense. I promise not to test you exactly on that. I'm not going to ask you to look at a picture and how would you prune this? Is this the right way to prune in this picture, or is this the right way to prune in that picture? In another class, maybe. In this class, I'm not going to do it. As if we had some vines to play around with and we were actually doing a pruning in the field, yeah, I could ask those kinds of questions because you did it. But from photos, I will not ask that on a test. But again, you're thinking of 2 things. Remember that. Number 1, you're pruning for fruit in the coming season. Number 2, you're pruning for renewal to have canes for next time. So here's some canes. You can see the 1-year wood looks kind of amber, tan, light brown, and the 2-year-old wood looks more gray. And so you have to make a decision. How am I going to prune this for next time? But the 2-year-old wood now was your 1-year-old wood with the buds that grew. So note that the spur is always below the position of the cane. So here, if they look at the pruning, here is a little line. If you look at this line right here crossing the cane at this point, look in the lower left-hand portion of this picture, just to the left of this arrow, and you will see that there's a piece that they're calling the spur for renewal. So when they prune, what happened? When they prune, yeah. So you've got your fruiting canes from this season. You've got these two fruiting canes for this season. And I'm not able to show I can't point to them very well because of the way my mouse is working when it's hovering over a picture. But you can read here the fruiting canes for this season. That's where the fruit mostly was. But then there's a spur of the previous season below the cane, and the cane for spur pruning for this season, the spur that you're going to leave for renewal this season, is the one on the far left. So when we look at how that's going to work, there they cut this, they pruned this exactly the way they should. Here's your new cane that's left. There's one new cane. Boom, I've got my cane. I've got my buds that are far enough up where the fruitfulness is higher so I can get my crop in the upcoming season. And I also have left a spur below the cane that will be renewal to make new canes for the following year. Okay? Anyway, very important concept. And I think if you just kind of walk back through this and you look at something, all right, here's a picture of an actual cane, 2-year and 1-year wood. And then looking at an example of one of those canes with the different pieces described, and then how do you actually prune it? And you can see what's left is I've got one cane that's been nipped at the top to leave it with, I don't know, 9 buds or something. What does it look like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I'm going to guess that maybe it's 9 buds left on that cane, somewhere around there. And then a spur for renewal for the following year that has maybe 2 buds on it. Okay. Wrong cane pruning. Short cane of the previous season and no spur at the base of the cane for renewal. No spur is left. So something went wrong. So here's just looking out in the vineyard, and you can see where the canes and spurs are in this particular example. Again, it takes practice. It's not easy to go through quickly and do this. If you sit there and stare long enough with a picture of proper pruning, yeah, you can do it, but that's not going to help if you have to stare at each vine. You've got to have this like on autopilot where when you're going through a vineyard, you just look at a vine and go bang, bang, bang. There's my spur for renewal below the cane. Leave my 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, 5, 6, 7, whatever your target is, number of buds on your cane, and snip on to the next one. Boom, boom, boom. And you get pretty quick at it. I've seen crews go through and they just blow my mind how quick some of these crews can be. So again, cane and spur, just a picture of how it looks. And well-spaced clusters on cane. So now all of that hard work from the previous dormant period, what does it look like during the pre-harvest? Beautiful. I mean, that's gorgeous. You couldn't possibly ask for a better cane prune environment or picture than that, in my opinion. Anyway, again, cane pruning can be also amenable to machine harvest or hand harvest. It depends. And one of the things that I keep telling myself I gotta see one of these times, I gotta hook up with a Thompson seedless grower and look at how they do the harvest operations and the pruning operations. A lot of stuff is highly automated because of these bulk commodities like the Thompson seedless that are in the grocery stores. Um, the profit margins are so small that they have to automate, and they take these giant like hedge clippers to do pruning rather than uh, somebody going through with a crew and doing it by hand. It's machine pruned in some of this, but I've never seen it, and been always too busy. I think about it every dang time I look at this presentation, and I don't go to YouTube because I got 10 more lectures to do before tomorrow night. So to get all of my classes content done. So I'm not going to do it now either. But if anybody knows, any of my students out there know of a um, good video, a good description of the harvest of table grapes, the pruning of table grapes, and I'd love to see how they do that because that's kind of a different world from mine. Anyway, that is it for pruning, spur and cane pruning.